All right, thank you. Hey, listen, I'll just build on something from earlier. We do live in interesting times these days, and I'm really proud of the role IBM's had as a leader in that. So can I get all the IBMers to just make a little noise for a second? So I'm Roger Premo. I lead IBM, and Nick Fuller is one of our leaders in IBM research. And so strategy gets to opine on the future of things, but people like Nick really make it happen. So we thought, obviously, AI is a hot topic, and it's hard to say something new, but I think there is really a set of patterns emerging today. So hopefully this gives a set of how do we really turn this into something that creates both personal and professional value when we're nearly 3 years into this, and there are a lot of organizations who are disappointed. So Nick, you want to maybe warm up the audience a little bit for us?
Fantastic, I agree. Thank you, Roger. And one team, we're all doing this collectively. So audience, want to engage you a little bit. If you've seen me before, you know this is my style, our style. So with that, who here works for a company that has experimented with generative AI or agentic AI? Yeah, the majority of you, right? Yeah, that makes sense. Who has projects in production? A little bit less. Who has derived business value from those projects? Maybe the same, yeah. Who's using it personally? Yeah, wow. Who's using it daily for their jobs? Who automatically does it no matter what? Your AI by default. Okay, very good. So Raj, I think this helps us a ton in terms of the framing that you want to get into.
Yeah, it is. I think I'll just go, a lot of people have heard these trends, but I'll just say, actually, I think the poll here was maybe a little bit higher, but there's this real pattern that practically every company in the world has experimented with GenAI or agents in some form. I don't think we have the charts, but anyway, the data says almost every company has, but now there's kind of the now famous study from MIT that only 5% have gotten real business value from it. But I think that kind of the invocation that I'd bring to this audience, both personally for yourself in your work and for your business, is that success in agentic AI is not optional. We are now seeing, if we look at IBM, we call it client zero, but we're role modeling this in our own business. And I've looked in my corporate strategy team, we scan around the world of companies that are adopting this. And the leaders that are doing it well are already creating value in their business. And it's measurable. For IBM, that's meant $3.5 billion better of run rate. That's 7 to 8% of our revenue. It's a big change in how we can invest in innovation like Nick's inside of our company. That start is going to get to escape velocity for the companies that get ahead. And I'll just say that I've seen little hints of this inside of IBM. We have general managers in their business that using this technology connected to how the total business operates. The best way I can explain it is business leaders that are approaching omniscient and approaching omnipotent, really changing the future of the company. And if your business isn't doing it, and if you're not doing it personally, they're simply going to be lapped by the businesses that do. And as I mentioned, I run this corporate strategy team, so we scan the world for these patterns. And what's amazing is that when you look at the companies that have actually done this successfully, there's practically no pattern. It's not in any specific country, it's not in any specific industry. It is companies that have really done it from end to end. And that's what the patterns and anti-patterns are about. Every company is eligible to do it. We have this little phrase, following the taillights of the leader. Holding my microphone better, will do. All right, 2 hands. I got a clicker too. All right, so there is no pattern. And where this stuff works, there are proven patterns. If it's in customer support, if it's in the back office, if it's in software development, those patterns apply to practically every company in the world. And I think so many companies have gotten really creative about how to use this technology and tried to envision a brand new place that they could do this, but the patterns exist. And if your organization isn't starting down those proven patterns, or maybe you've broken through and found one of the creative ones, if you're not following those proven patterns, you are going to fall behind. And so it is possible for every company in the world. When we summarize what has really happened among the leaders and those that have also failed, we look at a set of 5 patterns. So I'll dig into them a little bit. It begins with vision and leadership. So many companies, there's either this bottom-up innovation of a really brilliant team that tries to change the entire company leveraging this technology, but they run into a business that isn't willing to receive that change. Or the flip side, there's a CEO or board that declares, we're going to change and become a generative AI company without recognizing all the things that have to happen beneath it. The success pattern is a top to bottom aligned leadership. And I talked a little bit about IBM, but for us, that's meant our CEO setting out a vision that says we're going to be the most productive company in the world, all the way through tools that every single employee uses to access generative AI, and an annual hackathon where everybody in the company experiments with this technology and learns it. And so that top to bottom alignment is critical to actually go from a vision to real change. In use cases, so many companies have started their generative AI pitch contest where they've had sometimes hundreds, thousands of generative AI pilots. While those have a bunch of micro value, they don't add up into something that truly transforms a company. And we've seen this change from use cases to purposeful processes. Inside of IBM, if you look at how we do IT support or how we do HR processes, the end-to-end value is what we're going after rather than a bunch of disconnected point processes. So thinking about how do you really change the end-to-end of the business rather than a bunch of little points of light. A huge component of this is data. And I think for every company here, practically everybody came with a company that exists, right, at some scale. And the data inside these companies are how incumbents around the world are able to create advantage versus a greenfield startup. But so often that data lives in a disparate, low quality, poorly filtered way. And there is a mindset, again, in IBM, we've done, this was a prerequisite to a lot of the success we did, which is this notion of data as a product. Really thinking about all the discipline for folks to dig into product management and software, bringing that product management discipline to how we curate data and serve it up for the business is critical. And if you don't have a team that's already working, it may be a different name than data as product, but if you don't have a team inside your business that's working on productizing the data, both for regular analytics and for generative AI, it better get started soon because this is a prerequisite to truly take that data advantage of your existing business and turn it into an AI advantage of the future. The other one is technical platforms. And again, inside of IBM, we've done a lot of work to align our technical platforms, but so many clients, we see this pattern of doing, there's so many great vendors in the space, and most of them are partners with IBM, but if you do it in the silos of each different vendor, it won't succeed for generative AI, and especially for agentic AI. Why is that? Is because we have to platform engineers, because the data and tools that an agent calls do best when they can access data across the entire company and take action across the entire company. If each one of those forces the agent to platform engineer each of the environments it touches, it's basically technically impossible. So we have to start with good hygiene in the technical platform. That's often tough news for a lot of clients because they've let a lot of that kind of go sideways for a very long time. But it's time to really attack some of that technical debt because it is an anti-pattern and deriving value from this technology. And the last pattern I'll talk about is governance and security, and we'll dig into it more with Nick. But there's so many companies that go down this path. The model can do this for me. And it spits out things that are brilliant insights. But then you try to make it secure, you try and make it reliable, ethical, well-governed. That is really hard to retrofit after the fact. There's a notion of shift left right at the beginning of the development experience. If you dig into agentic software development, there's the notion of creating your eval frameworks. Eval frameworks are what we actually develop first before we develop the agent to figure out, what am I trying to really accomplish? Pushing governance, ethical AI, how I'm going to put guardrails around it, how I'm going to secure it, all the way into that eval framework to the very beginning is a prerequisite to really deploy this technology so it can scale securely and well-governed. So with that, I'll just leave it on this chart, but I'm gonna pass it off to Nick. Maybe Nick, I invite you to take a seat and let's talk about it a little bit. Nick, I I dug into it from looking at many clients and IBM's own experience. How does this compare to what you're seeing from the technology level?
Yeah, no, so first off, I like this framing because in one word, it's a GPS. And yes, it's a GPS we've employed. Having said that, many clients I meet with in my R&D capacity as a leader, building technology for agents, for the software delivery lifecycle, they've actually employed a similar GPS. It pretty much mirrors what I've seen. So I'll double click on a couple of swim lanes here just to bring that point out. And for one swim lane, I'll combine 1 and 2. Really critical, I was with a large European financial services company fairly recently. They run a contact center. And in that contact center, have been using generative AI. KPIs, bringing value, good. They like what they see. And then, of course, they see the noise of agents, et cetera, and wondering, is this a transition they need to make? But thinking through that transition in a careful way from what? The business point of view. This is really essential because one of the things I like to say is filtering through the noise becomes essential in making the right steps. That's an external statement in terms of models, platforms, et cetera. There's millions of models in Hugging Face. There's several dozen platforms out there. How do you get started? But you also have to filter out through the internal noise in your own organization. You might be getting pressure from a leadership point of view. Why are we doing one thing? Why is just a contact center? Why not more? Et cetera, et cetera. You have to gain trust with that AI system, to the last point on your GPS, in order to progress to the next set of steps. So for them, I credited them. I said, fantastic journey you've been on. In terms of whether you make that progression to the next phase, it really depends on the value you want to extract from the contact center. Business value first. I'll double click on the platform. That obviously all of these are critical, and like I said, it gives you a chronological way of going through this process. But from a platform point of view, especially in generative and agentic AI, so critical that you have visibility throughout the life cycle of what's being built. I'll give you another client example. I was with a large European retail client fairly recently, very sophisticated. And you find this with many companies out there today. They have sophisticated software organizations, they build their own things, there's a lot that's in the open, and so they're engaging in building before they perhaps make progression to a commercial offering. But remarkably, they said, Nick, we're building a ton of agents, but we have no idea what's happening under the covers in terms of LLM calls, token consumption, latency, tool calls, et cetera. Observability sucks, their words, not mine. I said, hey, there's an opportunity for you. And by the way, they were doing this on a variety of open frameworks, and as this audience well knows, there's a ton of them out there, from Langflow, LangGraph, Crew, and commercial platforms, ours, Salesforce, et cetera. And I said, listen, fantastic. We have capability we're working on that provides just that, agent ops, agent observability. It's in our platform, Orchestrate, but it's going into Langflow actually in a few days. So this is how you get that visibility. And in the absence of that visibility, if the agent doesn't do what you want it to do, you actually just think something's wrong with the model, and you switch out the model. And when it might not be the model issue at all, it may be a tool call issue, what have you. The last point I'll make on the platform, right, and I'll reference another client example. As you go through the build process, you need to ensure that applications are resilient. No one wants downtime, right? And it only magnifies itself depending on the industry and the vertical. So this particular financial services client here in North America, based in the South, they had experienced a few outages. They had embarked on running a little bit of generative AI from a resiliency point of view, application uptime, which runs roughly 14,000 US per minute of downtime. It's a very astronomical number if you think about it. So from their point of view, liking what they saw in terms of infusing agents into the resiliency process, which we're doing with our APM and Stana, and others are embarking on a similar journey, can only bring value because it points to uptime. So again, you know, Again, I love the framing. To me, it's a GPS. We've embarked on that ourselves. We're not doing it perfectly, obviously. There's always room to improve, but we're on a good journey. And from that point of view, there are many clients on a similar journey, and the R&D that infuses itself across these silos becomes super critical to move to the next phase and derive value.
Thanks, Nick. I'd love to shift gears for a second. Because I do think this notion of doing it professionally and personally, to truly be fluent in this technology, both to evolve your job, but then have enough fluency so you can shape the future for your company matters a lot. Talk to me about how do you use what are some interesting things and ways that you use generative AI or agents in your daily work?
Yeah, so two perspectives, right? The first one is above the use cases, time is fixed, right? No one here travels relativistically to dilate time, which would be great. I'd love when that could happen. The physicist in me sort of screams for that.
Is IBM Research working on that?
That's something I think about, but we're not there yet for sure. So with that, what's the equalizer? The equalizer is technology, right? So my commute's 40 miles door to door, which is crazy, I know. Having said that, I optimize every step of the way, right? Be it Waze, be it Google Maps, what have you, to get me there as efficiently as possible. That's one example for sure in terms of condensing time. Now, taking that to the next step from a GenAI, Agentic AI point of view, we spend a ton of time. I gave some examples with clients, a ton of presentations, a ton of reports. If I did all of those manually, it would slow me down, right? As efficient as I believe I might be, I get that huge multiplier from a GenAI point of view, and I leverage a range of models for it to get there, from a presentation point of view, from a reports point of view, and I'm talking to clients a couple times a week. So that's one. The other thing is, when we are embarking on future things, I'll tease one right now. Agents have a certain amount of memory. They struggle today with what is called episodic memory. So if you try to do something today and there's a particular approach you might be taking, whatever that agent is, and you go back in a few weeks, it isn't able to pick up the patterns you've been experimenting with in terms of your use case. So I go in and I play with a variety of different models to see what progress they're making on top of what we're doing already in that episodic memory space. Look out for that. That's a teaser for the future and something we'll put out into the open not too far from now. So some examples, it helps me for sure because it gives me headlights on what we're doing as an organization, and then it just multiplies my time.
Awesome, awesome.
So I didn't touch on governance, right? As part of one of the swim lanes, you touched on it. But I do want to bring this back full circle with this audience because it's absolutely critical from multiple points of view. You want to share your perspective in terms of ethics and how we think about this?
Well, I think it's a lot of people know about IBM's long experience in artificial intelligence. One of the things from the original Watson that I'm really proud about is recognizing, and this is a decade plus ago, as some of those made it into the production operations of our customers, it helped pioneer the field of AI ethics. And so from an IBM perspective, we've understood the importance of AI ethics for a decade and a half, that we can't build AI systems that reinforce a bias or take a model down a path that doesn't represent our customer base, our employee base, our values. And so I do think this notion of really thinking about ethics from the beginning and governance from the beginning for AI systems is just critically important, because we know if there's bias in our data, if there's bias in our models, the AI simply becomes an amplifying effect to turn that bias up to an exponential. And so I do think if you can search it online, it's available, but the work that IBM's done to build ethical frameworks of how to think about AI, what was true in a machine learning era is still true today with agents. It's just that it's more urgent because the ways that they can go bad is more well known. I think the nice thing about it is, or maybe nice, at least the world understands this now because we've all understood what a GenAI hallucination is. And if you're among the two people that don't, go to one of these tools and ask it the answer to questions that you factually know the answer to. And eventually it'll come back to you with a really convincing lie. And if we let our AI systems do that in the place of bias, it's going to have a lot of results that we don't want for our business and society. So I'm really proud of what IBM's done to both build that into an ethical framework, but put it into what we do with our clients. But Nick, I'll pass it back to you because I think you've been working on the technology that makes sure that those ethics are scalable and really work every day in production for our clients. So talk about the tech that makes AI governance work.
Yeah, no, good point. So two perspectives here. One is on the actual models. Of course, it's a multi-model world. I mentioned 2 million or so in Hugging Face. Our own models are built on a certain amount of data provenance, addressing hate, abuse, profanity, PII violations, all the range of things that you would want to safeguard from. Then in addition to that, of course, you may be using different models other than our own. We provide models that guardrail you with the model of choice that you're employing, both from an input and an output perspective, to help you with quantitatively identifying hallucinations, jailbreakings, those types of issues, hate, abuse, profanity, and whatnot that might be coming from the models you're employing. All of that is in a framework known as a Risk Atlas Nexus. It's in the open and employed in our governance platform. So, huge area of work. The team that works on this is very excited because not only is the tech exciting, but it provides huge value to the end consumer.
Well, Nick, maybe we'll close it there, but just for the audience, I think this is possible for any company. It is critical for every individual, and then doing it with governance built in from the beginning, so we do it in the right way for all of our businesses and for society. May I leave everybody with that set of messages.
Awesome, thanks.